All right, read it. Read all of it. Pause the video. All right, I'm sure you read it. So again, for all these word problems, ask yourself what we don't know. We don't know how many chairs, TV stands, and bookshelves should be produced. So that's where our variables come from. X will be the number of chairs. Y will be the number of TV stands. And Z will be the number of bookshelves. Okay. Here, this one, we will have to bounce around to get the equations. We will have an equation related to cutting, related to assembly, and related to finishing. So a chair needs 2 hours to cut, and we have X of those. A TV stand needs 5 hours to cut, and we have Y of those. And a bookshelf needs 3 hours to cut, and we have Z of those. And we have a total of 195 machine hours to cut. All right. A chair needs 3 hours to assemble, and we have X of those. A TV stand, 4 hours to assemble. Bookshelf, 1 hour to assemble. And we have a total of 149 assembly hours. Please try to do the last equation on your own. Pause the video. All right. Now we have our finishing. A chair needs 1 hour to finish. A TV stand needs 6 hours to finish. And a bookshelf needs 4 hours to finish. And we have 216 hours to finish. Excellent. Well, unlike the previous ones where we did Gauss-Jordan by hand, we're now going to do Gauss-Jordan via the calculator. So bust out your calculators. Boop. Oh, in fact, let's set up the matrix first. Let me turn that on. All right. We will need a 3x4 matrix here. And just for reminder purposes, this is the goal. One's in the diagonal, zero's everywhere else. All right. It is strongly advisable to definitely take notes on how to put this stuff into the calculator, because this will save you time for this section and another section later on in the chapter, and then the majority of chapter 7. Okay. First thing we need to do is to get the matrix into the calculator. You'll notice matrix is above the inverse key. So we'll go to second matrix. Now, I don't have any matrix in there right now. If I did, I could overwrite it by just writing on top of it, literally. It's very hard to delete a matrix. You have to go into the memory. So that's why it's just better just to overwrite it. But mine are all blank, so that's good. So I'm going to go over to Edit, and I'm just going to use matrix A. Notice our matrix has 3 rows, 4 columns, so this is a 3x4. And now we're going to put all the numbers in. No. Once you have your matrix in there, double, triple check it, because one digit off and there goes the entire problem. And we don't want that. Okay, great. Now, let's talk about what we need to do, excuse me, to get our goal. Where that 2 is at, right here, we need a 1. We could multiply the first row by a half. However, it's actually easier if we just said, hey, let's swap the rows. Row 1 becomes row 3. Now, we're not going to do every step one at a time and make 9 matrices as we go because I don't have enough room here. Instead, we're going to clear out the entire column. So assuming now that this is a 1, which means down here is a 2, keep that in mind. What should we multiply that 1 by? So when we add it to that 3, we get a 0, negative 3. Negative 3 row 1 plus row 2 makes row 2. And then what should we multiply that 1 by? So when we add it to this newly created 2, we get a 0, negative 2. So we're going to tell the calculator to do those 3 operations for us. Again, take some notes because you'll learn how to manipulate this calculator. As a comment, please note that the TI series of calculators are very menu driven, so we go back and forth a bunch. Here we go. Once you have your matrix in, we'll do second quit. Go back to second matrix. And we're going to scroll over to math. And then scroll up. And our first operation was swapping rows. So select row swap. Hit enter. There are 3 inputs. The first one is the name of the matrix. So go back to second matrix. And under names, select the matrix that you created. I created matrix A. Comma is above the 7. And then we're swapping rows 1 and 3. So 1, comma 3. Don't hit enter yet. So one more time, matrix name, comma, the 2 rows you're swapping. Right parenthesis to close the operation. But we need to tell the calculator, hey, this is now the new, in this case, matrix A. So you hit the store button, which is above on, and back to second matrix A. So when we're done with every single step here, we need to hit store. Store acts like save, not save as. So you can't make a copy unless you give it a whole different matrix name. We're just going to overwrite the previous matrix A. Okay, hit enter. So you'll see that the first row and the third row swapped. Awesome. So now to do the next 2 operations, go back to second matrix. Math. Scroll up. And we're looking at the last one there, star row plus. Star row plus multiplies a row by number and adds the result to another row. Select that one. We are multiplying negative 3. So that's the first thing you type in, the number you are multiplying by. Comma, the matrix name, second matrix, I called mine A. Comma, the row you are multiplying, we are multiplying row 1. Comma, and we're adding this to row 2. So again, the inputs are the number you are multiplying by, the matrix involved, the row you are multiplying, and then the row you are adding to. Close the parenthesis, store it, matrix, in my case, A. Hit enter. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing for the negative 2 row 1 plus row 3. Again, another star row plus. Second matrix, math, scroll up, star row plus. What number are we multiplying? Negative 2, comma, matrix name, comma. What row are we multiplying? 1, comma. What row are we adding to? In this case, 3. Close the parentheses, store matrix name. Hit enter. Now, you are fully welcome to freak out over those numbers. You don't have to. You can if you want to. I would recommend not doing that. What you see me writing is the minimum of what I will need to see on a test. So you don't need to show me the intermediate steps of the 4 numbers off to the side, all that stuff. You can just use the calculator to have it do all that. Okay, so our first column is done. Check. So we'll now move on to the second column. We'll make our 1 and then we'll make our zeros. So where that negative 14 is at, we need a 1. So we can say negative 1/14, row 2 becomes row 2. Now assuming that negative 14 is a 1, how do we knock out that 6? Negative 6, row 2 plus row 1 becomes row 1. And again, assuming that negative 14 is a 1, how do we knock out that 7? 7, row 2 plus row 3 becomes row 3. It is a grand idea that before you even touch that calculator, write down your steps, because, as we're going to see here, we're going to get some ugly decimals. And at the very end, we'll have the calculator turn it into fractions for us, but you might not be able to see your work if you have all those decimals, because it's going to show like 10 digits for every entry, and that's way too much. Okay, so we have a new operation, multiply a row by a non-zero number. We'll go to second matrix, scroll over to math, scroll up, and this time we're looking for star row. Star row multiplies a row by a non-zero number. Select it. This has 3 inputs. The number you want to multiply, negative 1/14. Notice you don't have to make it look like a fraction. You can just literally do negative 1 divided by 14. Comma, the matrix name, comma, the row you are going to multiply, 2. So number you're multiplying, matrix name, row you're multiplying, close it off, store it. Now this is going to get ugly. That's Clover again, she says hello. Don't worry about that. We're going to make it prettier soon. So for the next 2 here, we're multiplying by a row and adding to another row. Remember, that is a star row plus. So if you want to, pause the video, try it on your own. I'm just going to keep clicking and clicking. Clickety clicking, clickety clicking, click, 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 click. Remember to store as you go. So hopefully you still see 1, 0, 0 for the first column, 0, 1, 0 for the second column. And now it looks insane. Well, if you hit math, arrow frac, that black arrow means convert, so convert to fraction. Then we get a very nice looking, sure, matrix. Let's copy that down. And then 0, 1. I did not leave myself enough room. 0, 0, 1 half, 25 halves. All right, our second column is done. Check. Move on to the third column. Where that 1/2 is at, we need a 1, so let's multiply that row by 2. Where that negative 5/7 is at, we need a 0, so let's multiply the last row by positive 5/7 and add it to the first row. And where that 11/14 is at, we need a 0, so let's multiply the last row by a negative 11/14 and add it to the second row. As before, pause the video if you want to. The first one is going to be a star row. The latter two is going to be a star row plus. Keep on keeping on. What am I doing? There we go. Boop. Hooray! Okay, so if this is on the test, I'd probably ask you to write a sentence here. So you would say they should make 20 chairs, because X was 20. They should make 16 TV stands and 25 bookshelves. Excellent. So use the power of the calculator to do your elementary row operations. So much better. Again, it'll make your life a lot easier in Chapter 7.